Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into this incredibly dramatic moment from the Gospel of John, a single sentence from Jesus that completely flipped an entire religious festival on its head. So let's set the scene.
Okay, so I want you to picture this. We're in ancient Jerusalem. The city is just buzzing. It is packed with people, and there's this incredible energy in the air because one of the biggest events of the year, this week-long festival, is about to hit its grand finale. Right, so this event was called the Feast of Tabernacles. And look, to really get the punch of what Jesus does here, we've got to first understand what this whole celebration was really all about.
So this whole feast was basically a huge yearly look back. It commemorated the 40 years the Israelites spent wandering in the desert after they were freed from slavery in Egypt. And you gotta remember, the desert, it's a place of scarcity. They were living in these temporary shelters or booths and had to depend on God for literally everything, but especially for water, the absolute most essential thing for life. And here's where it gets really interesting. How did they remember that total dependence? Well, at the very heart of the festival was this incredible, super dramatic, and deeply symbolic ceremony, all centered around water. So every single day of the festival, they would reenact one of the most famous stories from their time in the desert. You probably know it. It's the one where Moses strikes a rock and boom, water just miraculously gushes out for a whole nation of thirsty people. This wasn't just some old dusty tradition. For them, it was like history coming alive right before their eyes. And they did it with such precision. A priest would head down to the Pool of Siloam, which, by the way, was the only source of fresh water in Jerusalem, and he'd fill up this beautiful golden pitcher. Then, can you imagine? He'd carry it all the way back up to the temple, with crowds cheering, trumpets blasting, the whole 9 yards, and pour that precious water out on the altar. And as this whole procession made its way through the city, the people were chanting. They're shouting out verses from the Psalms that connect this very moment, this ceremony, all the way back to that miracle in the desert. The whole point was celebrating God as the ultimate provider, the source of that life-giving water. So this happens every day, for 7 straight days. The entire city gets swept up in this rhythm of praise, of water, of celebration. But then, the 8th day arrives, the final day. They called it the great day of the feast, and on this day, everything changes. I mean, just try to imagine the energy, right? The expectation that's been building all week long, that daily trip to the spring, the music, the shouts of joy, watching that water get poured out at the temple. It was this powerful, physical symbol you could see and feel God provides. But on this last day, the most important day, it just stopped. Complete silence. There's no procession. No priest goes down to the pool. That golden pitcher, it stays empty. No water is poured. Suddenly, a ritual that was all about water became all about the lack of water. And right into that heavy, dramatic silence, Jesus stands up. And he doesn't just speak, he shouts. He makes this proclamation that is just staggering. I mean, at the exact moment the symbolic water is gone, he basically says, "Here I am. I'm the real source." So what on earth did he mean by that? Come and drink. You know, this was way, way more than just, hey, if you're thirsty, I've got some water over here. He was totally redefining the idea of believing. See, in this moment, coming and drinking meant putting all your trust, all your dependence on him for your spiritual life. Think about it. Your body has to have water to live. It's not optional. He was saying that depending on him is just like that. And here's the crucial distinction, right? There's a huge difference between knowing about water, like you know it's H2O, you know where the tap is, and actually drinking it when you're parched. Jesus was calling for the second one, not just knowing some facts about him, but actively relying on him to quench that deep inner spiritual thirst. But he didn't even stop there. He then goes on to describe what would happen to anyone who actually took him up on this offer. And this next part, it's even more profound. He pushes the whole metaphor one giant step further. He says this living water won't just satisfy your thirst. No, it'll actually transform you into a source of life for other people. He says rivers of living water will flow out of you. So let's break that down. He's talking about something internal, right? Flowing from your very heart, your core. And it's not like a tank of water you have to save up. It's a spring that just keeps bubbling up. It never runs out. And because it's an endless supply, what's it for? It's meant to overflow, to be shared with everyone.
Now, just in case anyone missed the point, the writer of the Gospel, John, chimes in right here with a little explainer. He tells us that these rivers of living water Jesus was talking about, that's a direct reference to God's Spirit, which believers would receive after Jesus' story was complete.
So think about the timing of this. By making this absolutely shocking claim at the exact moment of ritual emptiness, Jesus wasn't just, interrupting a party. He was claiming to be the real deal, the fulfillment of everything that ceremony had been pointing to all along. He was basically saying, you've been celebrating the symbol of the rock that gave water? I am the rock. I am the source of spiritual life. And that leaves this huge question hanging in the air, not just for them, but for us too. In the dry, thirsty parts of our own lives, where do we need this living water the most?